Hello, and welcome to the channel The Great Depression, How the United States Entered Its Darkest Economic Era. Introduction. In the late 1920s, the United States appeared to be one of the most prosperous nations in the world. Industrial production was rising. New technologies were transforming daily life. Factories were expanding, cities were growing, and millions of Americans believed the future would only get better. This period became known as the Roaring Twenties. Stock prices climbed steadily. More Americans than ever invested in the stock market, often using borrowed money. Confidence in the economy was widespread. But beneath the surface, serious structural problems were building. In the fall of 1929, those weaknesses were suddenly exposed. What began as a financial collapse on Wall Street soon turned into the most severe and prolonged economic crisis in American history. This period became known as the Great Depression. The economic background of the 1920s. After World War I, the United States emerged as a global economic power. American factories supplied goods to both domestic and international markets. Mass production techniques increased efficiency and output. Consumer goods such as automobiles, radios, and household appliances became widely available. However, this growth was uneven. While corporations and investors accumulated wealth, wages for many workers did not rise at the same pace. Farmers in particular struggled throughout the decade due to falling crop prices and rising debt. At the same time, the stock market experienced rapid expansion. Many investors purchased shares on margin, meaning they borrowed money to buy stocks, expecting prices to continue rising. This practice increased profits during good times, but amplified losses when prices fell. By 1929, stock prices were significantly higher than the actual value of many companies. The financial system had become fragile. The stock market crash of 1929. The turning point came in October 1929. On October 24, 1929, a day later known as Black Thursday, panic selling began on the New York Stock Exchange. Millions of shares were traded as investors rushed to sell. Banks and financial institutions attempted to stabilize the market by purchasing large blocks of stock. For a brief moment, the decline slowed, but the confidence was already broken. On October 29, 1929, known as Black Tuesday, the market collapsed. Approximately 16 million shares were traded in a single day. Stock prices fell dramatically. Investors lost billions of dollars in paper value. Many were left with massive debts and no assets. The crash did not directly cause the Great Depression, but it marked the beginning of a chain reaction that would devastate the American economy. Bank failures and financial panic. Following the stock market crash, the banking system came under extreme pressure. During this period, bank deposits were not insured. When a bank failed, customers lost their savings entirely. As news of financial instability spread, people rushed to withdraw their money. These events, known as bank runs, forced many banks to close. Between 1930 and 1933, more than 9,000 banks in the United States failed. The collapse of banks reduced the money supply. Businesses could not obtain loans. Investments slowed dramatically. As credit disappeared, companies began cutting production and laying off workers. Unemployment and social collapse. By 1933, the situation had become catastrophic. Unemployment reached approximately 25%. Nearly 1 in 4 American workers was without a job. Millions of families lost their homes. Unable to pay rent or mortgages, they were forced into homelessness. Informal settlements appeared on the outskirts of cities. These makeshift communities were commonly called Hoovervilles, named after President Herbert Hoover, who many blame for the crisis. Food insecurity became widespread. Charities and local governments organized soup kitchens and breadlines. For many Americans, these were the only sources of daily meals. The psychological impact was severe. The belief in endless economic progress had been shattered. The agricultural crisis and the Dust Bowl. While cities struggled with unemployment, rural America faced additional disasters. Throughout the 1930s, large areas of the Great Plains experienced severe drought. Years of intensive farming without soil conservation had weakened the land. When drought struck, strong winds carried away the topsoil. This environmental catastrophe became known as the Dust Bowl. Dust storms darkened skies, destroyed crops, and made farming impossible. Thousands of families were forced to abandon their land. Many migrated west, particularly to California, in search of work. These migrants often faced discrimination, poverty, and unstable living conditions. The Dust Bowl intensified the suffering already caused by the economic collapse. Government response before 1933. President Herbert Hoover believed that the economy would recover naturally. He favored limited government intervention and encouraged voluntary cooperation among businesses. While some public works projects were introduced, they were insufficient to address the scale of the crisis. As conditions worsened, public dissatisfaction grew. By the early 1930s, it became clear that existing policies were not enough. The election of Franklin D. Roosevelt. In 1932, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected President of the United States. He promised a new deal for the American people. His approach represented a fundamental shift in the role of government. For the first time, the federal government assumed responsibility for stabilizing the economy and providing direct relief to citizens. The New Deal programs. After taking office in 1933, Roosevelt launched a series of programs known collectively as the New Deal. These programs had three primary goals: relief for the unemployed, economic recovery, financial reform. Key initiatives included the Civilian Conservation Corps, which provided jobs for young men in environmental projects; the Works Progress Administration, which employed millions in construction, infrastructure, and public service projects; the Social Security Act, which introduced pensions for the elderly and assistance for the disabled; the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insured bank deposits and restored confidence in the banking system. The New Deal did not end the Great Depression, but it significantly reduced suffering and restructured the American economy. Long-term economic impact. Despite these reforms, economic recovery was slow. Unemployment remained high throughout the 1930s. Industrial output improved, but full recovery had not been achieved. The experience permanently changed American attitudes toward government, labor, and finance. Financial regulations were strengthened. The role of federal oversight expanded. Economic security became a central political concern. The role of World War II. The final end of the Great Depression came with the outbreak of World War II. As the United States increased military production, factories reopened. Millions of Americans were employed in defense industries. Government spending reached unprecedented levels. By the early 1940s, unemployment had largely disappeared. The American economy had been transformed. Conclusion. The Great Depression was not caused by a single event or mistake. It was the result of structural weaknesses, financial speculation, policy failures, and global instability. Its consequences reshaped the United States in lasting ways. Modern banking regulations, social safety programs, and economic policies were born from this crisis. The Great Depression remains a powerful reminder of how fragile economic systems can be and how deeply they affect human lives. Understanding this period is essential to understanding modern America. If you want to understand real historical events and how they shape the United States, subscribe to this channel. Here, history is explained clearly, truthfully, and without myths.